Welcome to the Law Management Journal and our Q&A podcast series. Through these podcast interviews, we are telling the stories and exploring the leadership and business strategies of some of the leading minds in the Australian legal sector.
Hi, I'm Cameron Cooper, editor of the Law Management Journal. In our latest Q&A, we're speaking to Regie Anne Gardoce, an award-winning innovator in the legal sector. Until very recently, Reggie was the legal transformation lead for Sprintlaw, an online legal firm based in New South Wales. In this interview, Reggie lets us in on some of the tech secrets behind Sprintlaw's success. She also explains how a new generation of tech-savvy lawyers, in tandem with ChatGPT and other large language models, is ready to shake up the industry. Hi, Reggie. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Just wanted to start out with talking about your career journey and how you got to this point, and how you ended up working in the law.
Yeah. So I actually studied law in university, and I started with the idea that I'd always wanted to become a lawyer, knowing I wanted to make an impact originally from a social justice point of view. And as I went through the university experience, I pretty quickly learned that I was drawn to innovative ways of thinking, and different ways of thinking. So I threw myself at opportunities to work in startups, and to work in social enterprise companies and companies that I hadn't really had exposure to before. And so I was learning all these new skills. And from there, I knew I wanted to work in technology, or I wanted to work in something that was a little bit different to what I was used to. So I was learning all these different skills. And then one day I got introduced to the founders of Sprintlaw. And someone told me there are these two founders who used to work in the legal industry in the more traditional side of the law and have started something really exciting, and it might be something I'm interested in. And at that point, I didn't think I would work in the legal industry again, actually. But after speaking to them and learning more about their vision and what they were trying to do, I was just so excited at the prospect of working with them and really changing the way legal services are delivered to small businesses. I myself grew up around a lot of small businesses. A lot of my family had small businesses as I was growing up. And as a kid, I remember even being introduced to early accounting software and figuring out how to send invoices from that kind of software. So I was exposed to what kind of problems small businesses enter, and how, budget is tight and you normally can't afford the bigger providers. So this was something that felt really personal to me, and I was just so excited by it. And at that point, I still wasn't sure if I wanted to become a lawyer. So I actually started in a sales role with them, where I was picking up calls every day from different small businesses and hearing about what are their issues, what are they concerned about, and I guess triaging their issues and diagnosing their legal health, as we call it, and understanding what are their priorities and pushing them towards a lawyer from there. So I actually started in that team, in the sales team, and that was really interesting. Got to practice my legal skills a little bit, but also learn a lot about how to optimize the sales process and using technology to optimize the onboarding process for a client. We could onboard a client pretty much within seconds now. So that was really interesting. And then I jumped from the sales team, then I started managing that sales team, and then I moved to the marketing team for a little bit. And then eventually I thought to myself, hey, let's just give this a go. I think I could really enjoy being a lawyer. I really love how Sprintlaw's doing things. So I started in the legal team as a graduate at Sprintlaw. And it was the first graduate cohort at Sprintlaw. So it was really exciting to build that together with the team. And I did the graduate program, and then I eventually was able to progress really quickly into an independent lawyer, handling my own matters independently. And that was great. I probably spoke with hundreds of small businesses during my time as a lawyer, ranging from not-for-profits to tech startups to a family running their cafe just down the road from where they live. And it was a very humbling and very great experience in learning all these different areas of law and understanding all the different issues that these businesses come across and helping them with their legal advice. So that was really interesting. But then once again, I came back to my roots in terms of I was always driven by different ways of doing things. And so I actually found myself trying to optimize my own job
Mhm.
where I had a task and I knew I'd done this 5 times before, and I was just thinking to myself, how can I improve this? How can I not recreate the wheel each time? And so I started having all these suggestions and suggesting all these recommendations to other members of the team. And pretty quickly I realized, no, I enjoy being a lawyer, but I think I'm more interested in optimizing the lawyer experience and optimizing the client experience. And then eventually I moved into my current role, which is in legal transformation and making all the magic happen behind the scenes so that both our lawyers and our clients are having a great experience.
It sounds like, a lot of lawyers come through a very traditional sort of process, coming through
Mm,
university, graduating, and then going straight into the law. So this
yeah,
diverse sort of background of small business, I think you worked in design, you worked, as you
yeah,
said, in marketing. Clearly, you have
yeah.
a technology bent. That's
Mm.
really allowed you to bring something different to the table. Is that how you see it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think having that exposure so early makes you see things differently. So when I was in uni, I was doing marketing internships or tech internships. I did some UX design. And so what that meant is even while I was a lawyer, if I was using a tool, I could feel frustrated by how that tool was in front of me because I understood how it could be done better. I understood the inefficiencies of that tool and how it affects my work directly. But yeah, if I didn't have that experience prior, I would have just taken the tool in front of me at face value and just had a it is what it is attitude towards it. But I think having early exposure to that way of thinking and understanding different parts of a business and understanding different parts of an app or a tool, it really helped me, I guess, want to innovate the way lawyers do their work. Yeah.
We should mention that Sprintlaw is a purely online firm. I'm interested from your insider's point of view. We've got a lot of innovative firms shaking up the legal sector in Australia. What are sort of the differences that they're bringing, and why do you think they're being so successful and innovative?
As in Sprintlaw or the other firms
Yeah,
and their
well, particularly
competitors.
Sprintlaw, I think you
Yeah.
talked that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the fact that Sprintlaw is an online law firm means we have to rely on technology in all aspects of the service that we deliver. And what that means is the company is inherently a technology driven business. There's no other alternative. We have to use technology. And so, what that means is we're constantly looking at ways we can improve the way technology helps drive our business. And that's from everything. That's from the trust accounting side to the onboarding a client side to the way a client renews their subscription with us. And so I think what it really forces us to do is that it makes us want to mirror legal services as any other service the client uses in any other part of their business. So yeah, I think having that technology mindset at the core and as part of the furniture of the business really drives us to constantly improve. Yeah.
And your role in itself at Sprint Law has been interesting. The title legal transformation lead. I mean, that's not a position that exists in most law firms. I guess that's an indicator that you're doing things differently and that you've got different tasks to deal with on a day-to-day basis. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's definitely not a common job title. And yeah, I think traditionally transformation across other industries is used to describe someone who comes into a business and transforms and changes the way things are traditionally done. And inherently, Sprint Law already does that because of its model and the way it's set up for its clients. But my job really is to constantly challenge even that and constantly challenge our model. And so, yeah, my role is split up into, I guess, two roles. And it's one, making sure our legal systems and processes are operating efficiently day to day. So monitoring that and making sure there are no bugs and making sure it's achieving the intended purpose. And the other side is the more transformation side, which is challenging the norm, looking inside our process and thinking, is this how we should be doing things or should we change this? And always having that mindset and then actually executing those changes. It's one thing obviously to say, yes, we've got all these problems and we need to fix this and we need to fix that. But a really big part of my role is actually executing that and consulting very closely with our legal team, very closely with our technology team and our growth team and our leadership team and being able to execute a project and get from A to B.
And for some of the more traditional firms, a lot of them are grappling with technology and, what platforms they should adopt, for example. Have you got
Mm,
any advice for them around that? Not so much around brands or so forth, but, that process, making sure you've got the right technology solution.
yeah. Yeah. I think change management is probably the biggest area to look at for other firms. I mean, it's already a big part of even Sprintlaw. And, we're a much younger law firm compared to some of our competitors, and we've got a smaller team. But I think no matter the size or the infrastructure of your firm, change management is really key to ensuring that the innovative technology and innovative processes you roll out is actually achieving its intended purpose. So, that includes obviously scoping it very well, understanding what that technology does, and then consulting the people who are going to actually use it and consulting them. What are their actual frustrations? What problems do they want to be solved? And, in an ideal world, this is a question I often ask lawyers as well. It's like, in an ideal world, just ignore anything that could be possible or impossible. What would make your life easier? And going backwards from there and having a user-centered approach, which is an approach I learned from my tech experience, is always thinking about the user, in this case, the lawyer, always thinking about what the lawyer is actually after. And the same applies for clients. What does the client actually want? And so thinking backwards that way and making sure you're always having a user-centered approach in the way you decide what technology to use or even design your in-house technology. I think that's going to be sort of the biggest um, learning curve for a lot of the firms who probably hadn't done that before. And I'm sure I know a lot of firms are already doing a lot of exciting things, but I also know, regardless of your size and everything, change management and really focusing on that user-centered approach is probably one of the hardest things.
So it really takes a mindset change to say, right, we're going to embrace innovation, but on the other hand, you still need to execute. You still
Yeah.
need to have processes in place to ensure that the rollout is successful, by the sound of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's a very clever way to bridge the gap of knowledge between the users who are going to use it. And so when GPT and all this started rolling out, everyone was very afraid of its capabilities. But if you consult very closely with the users who are going to use the platform that you're building for them, and you teach them what's possible with these new technologies, that makes that change so much better and so much easier if they understand what's actually possible for them, and they get over that initial fear, and the unknown, that fear of the unknown. And so that's why I think that change management process is just such a core part of rolling out these ideas.
Yeah, let's chat about ChatGPT in a moment, a little more, and all the exciting opportunities that presents. But firstly, congratulations. I should have mentioned earlier in the interview that you were the Innovator of the Year in the Australian Law Awards in 2024. So congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Must be very exciting. Yeah, and it sort of brings to the heart of it this discussion about innovation, what it actually means. And as someone who's won an award for it, I'm just curious about what innovation means to you.
Yeah. Well, for me, innovation means building something great that actually changes something
Mhm.
and that actually has an impact. Most of and as I was applying for that award, and going through that process, actually, most of the innovation that I've built over the years was in the absence of ChatGPT and was actually very data driven, very user driven, very purpose driven. And so to me, yeah, innovation means whatever you build needs to actually achieve what you wanted it to achieve. So, and that involves sort of going through the exercise of what is the problem you're trying to solve, what numbers is it affecting, and then putting a team together and trying to understand, okay, so how can we achieve this? What technologies do we need? What resources do we need? What team members do we need? And understanding everyone's capacity and bandwidth to execute that, executing it, but then also, which is the most important part, monitoring that. And you could roll something out and then it disappears into the ether, then no one ever uses it. Or you roll something out and you monitor it and you look at the numbers closely and you see, is it actually achieving its intended purpose? So that is what innovation means to me. It's being able to execute a solution that achieves the intended impacts. And so, yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, so measurement is important, clearly,
Yes.
not just rolling out technology for the sake of it or
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
it's a shiny new toy. It's got to
Yeah.
actually be productive.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm curious with obviously with ChatGPT and others talking about a new system coming out of China that looks pretty exciting too. Just, curious, where do you think this is heading, particularly for the legal profession, in terms of how it can be used effectively, how it can be used to, not take the jobs of lawyers, but to make them more efficient, perhaps. Where do you see it happening in the next 5 years or so?
Yeah, yeah. So I really feel excited by all the opportunities by LLMs like ChatGPT. And, yes, I think it makes lawyer jobs more efficient. But I also think it makes lawyer jobs more meaningful. And what I mean by that is that, these technologies that are made possible by things like ChatGPT means that you can take away those monotonous tasks that AI can do, summarizing emails, summarizing documents, or spitting out auto-generated simple documents. And that takes away, monotonous or admin type work that a lawyer might be spending hours doing. And then actually they focus on providing strategic advice. And it gets ChatGPT kind of gets them, 40, 50% of the way there. And then it focuses on what clients want, which is that added human value from lawyers with their years of experience, with their analytical way of thinking. And it also takes a good user to get a good prompt from ChatGPT. And so that itself, prompt engineering itself is a whole skill. So yeah, I feel very excited for it. And in terms of where I see this going in the next 5 years, I think there's going to be a large emphasis on data um, and using LLMs to harness the data of law firms to provide a good impact, not only for its clients, but also for its lawyers that it's using. And I'll give you an example of something that we've been working on at Sprintlaw for a very long time, which is our knowledge platform. Um, and so, Sprintlaw works with thousands and thousands of small businesses. At the end of every job, that lawyer might have drafted 4 documents for this very specific type of small business. And that is knowledge we don't want to lose. So at the end of every job, that knowledge is actually tagged by the lawyer with key information, and then it's de-identified and sent back into our knowledge platform. And so what's happening there is at the end of every job, our knowledge platform continues to learn on its own. And this is without any LLM yet.
Yeah.
This is just data structured really well, de-identified and collected very meticulously over the years. So we've been collecting this data for 6, 7, 8 years, and we've got this massive database of all our of very very I guess important knowledge from our lawyers' experience. And so even before GPT, our lawyers were just using that database to add filters and search for specific examples from 5 years ago. I remember I did this exact project. I have that exact scenario now. I want to use it, but after the launch of GPT, we pretty quickly realized we could layer an AI chatbot on top of that database. So we had this data that was already well structured. We're already continuing to collect every day. And we layered an AI chatbot on top of it where our lawyers could query our database. They
Okay.
didn't have to have any technological understanding of the database or how data works. They could just chat to our bot and say, look, I've got this matter right now. Here are the 3 main points about this matter that I know is specific to this matter. Can you search our whole database and give me examples? And that chatbot will come back and say, yeah, here are some 5 examples drafted by this lawyer on this date. It might be outdated because it was drafted on this date and these laws have changed since, but here are the examples and here's a link to it. And really that cuts down almost half of the lawyer's time. And I know this myself because I was a lawyer, where when I first started on a matter, I spend most of the time trying to find resources, trying to understand where else
Mhm.
have we done this. And that cuts that first exercise out completely, just by adding that AI chatbot layer on top of the data. And so that wouldn't be possible without the data that it came with. And so where I see all of this AI stuff going is the power of data playing a really important role in how impactful these AI technologies can be.
Very interesting. And I guess a lot of lawyers who are not so tech savvy will be listening to that response and thinking, my goodness, I've got to get up to speed. But the other exciting aspect, I suspect, is that we have a whole new generation of younger tech savvy lawyers coming through the system. who'll be able to embrace this sort of technology and also help firms along the way. Is that how you see it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, well, first piece of advice, I guess, for any younger lawyers listening to this is I don't know how to code all the different languages. I don't have that level of technical skill. I don't think that's needed in a legal transformation role specifically. What I do have is understanding what makes a good process, what process has a good impact, and mapping that out. And then I work closely with technology teams to execute that. Um, However, like when the younger generation coming into the legal industry, it's really interesting because in our personal lives, we're already exposed and overwhelmed by so much technology. And I actually take so much of that with me into my work. And so, for example, my phone right now is as clean as it can be in terms of I have 5 apps on my homepage, and they're the apps that I use the most because they're the apps that I find that are the most impactful on my day to day. Everything else is hidden, or I've unsubscribed, or I've deleted from my life because it's just too much and it's too overwhelming. And as a user in all these other tech apps of your life, you unconsciously start to absorb what makes a good experience for you, what's most efficient for you. And you'd be surprised how much of that you can take into your workplace. Just understanding as a user, okay, I'm using, Uber, and this is really good because of X reason. Why can't that be the case in this tool at work? And, these are two completely different tools, but the inherent thinking is there, and you can take that with you. So I think, yeah, the younger generation, and not just the younger generation, anyone who uses technology could use that, I guess, unconscious learning you learn yourself as a user for other tech tools into the law and how things could be improved.
Yes, let's not just write off all the older generation here.
Yeah.
I admit maybe too personal, Reggie, those 5 apps that you find really useful on a day-to-day basis. Can you share a couple of them with us, but don't feel compelled to?
Yeah. I mean, I definitely use Uber quite a bit and Uber Eats. I've also got Notion. A lot of people might be familiar with this, but I think it started as a journaling app where you can take notes. And before, I used to just pull out my notes app on my phone and jot down notes. But I actually use Notion for my personal life. We also use it at Sprintlaw, but I use it for my personal life for everything really, to write down my recipes, my financial planning with my partner. Our calendars are all synced in there, and it's how I organize my life. And it's just such a great tool that has such a great impact on my personal life. And it's got an AI sort of element layered on top of it as well. And it's very simple. It's not overcomplicated. It's a very simple, easy to use app. And so the way I use that, I actually apply into the thinking I have into my work. So yeah, that's a good example of, and this is not an ad for Notion, but I genuinely use it in my personal life quite a lot. In documenting, journaling, recipes. When I travel, I use it for my travel itineraries. It's just the opportunities are endless. And so a very simple app, very simple tool, but the possibilities are endless.
Well, I'm happy to say that I do have Notion too. I probably don't use it to full effect like you, but at least I'm not too out of date with this technology. Probably my last question, I think, Reggie, is around the fact that in this edition of the Hub, we're looking at client growth and how you can achieve client growth. So I think it's appropriate to ask a question around, the use of technology and innovation. Any last tips that you've got for driving some of that client growth, which sounds like it's been very successful at Sprintlaw?
Yeah. And to answer that question, I'd like to bring it back to what I was mentioning earlier about user-centered approach and really thinking about what the client wants. And this is client growth from the perspective of how a company can grow its clients, but at the same time, how you can help the client grow themselves as a business. And so Sprintlaw is a commercial services law firm, and we only service businesses. And so when we think about how do we design our platform, how do we design our services so we can grow our clients, we really think about what our clients want. And so a piece of advice is just to talk to your clients, understand what it is they want, what are their frustrations with your product, what could be done with your product better. And I think really understanding that will help achieve both the law firm's goals as well as really helping your clients grow. And so for us at Sprintlaw, as we were building our platform last year and getting feedback from our clients, what are the main feedback we've gotten from our clients over the years that they don't know what they don't know. And they need lawyers to be proactive. They don't want to just speak to us when there's a really bad issue that's happened and it's way too late to make any changes. And the way we see it is our job as a law firm, Sprintlaw, is to be proactive, is to provide that strategic advice before it's too late for those clients. And so, the way we see client growth is really understanding what our clients need and being proactive for that and using technology to do that. And so we built this legal health algorithm where our clients, when they sign up to our subscription, they answer a bunch of questions, about how many employees they have or industry they're in and things like that. And at the end of it, they get this legal health dashboard, which basically spits out from our algorithm. Here are your top 3 priorities right now that you should absolutely do. Here are the next 3 priorities you don't have to do right now, but you should probably do. And here are some other 3 priorities you can do later. And it just helps the client understand, okay, got it. And I know how to prioritize. And that's how we help our clients grow. And it's also how we help the business grow. So, yeah.
Well, Reggie, it's great to get your insights and your thoughts for this interview. I'll throw it open. Any last advice that you'd put out into the world of law firms?
Yeah, I guess just stay curious. Be open to new technologies. Be open to new ways of thinking. Just because things have always been done a certain way doesn't mean it has to be. There could be better ways of doing that. You don't need to have the most exciting piece of technology to have an impact. You just need to understand that technology and need to understand what problem it is you're trying to solve, and then you can get from A to B. And obviously there are all these new technologies coming out that can help you get there. But before you start getting excited about that, you really need to understand what problem you're trying to solve and how you can solve that for your user, for your customer, for your client.
Well, Reggie, thanks for your time. Congratulations on your success.
Thank you.
And all the best in the future.
Thank you so much, Cameron.
Thanks for listening to the Law Management Journal Q&A podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider subscribing. For more law management insights, please visit lmhub.com.au.